Otherwise your organs start hemorrhaging, you just start like bleeding internally apparently, and it is like the worst possible way to go out. Hey, what's up YouTube? Today I'm gonna talk about something that happened to me a couple weeks ago, and that was coming down with dengue fever and what that did to my diet and training. So it was a Saturday morning and I wound up waking up at about 8 a.m. and I had the weirdest feeling in my bones. I just felt like something was gonna go terribly wrong. Couldn't quite place my finger on it. Went back to bed and I woke up, that was at 8 a.m. I woke up at about 11 a.m. just in this awful pain. I don't get fevers very often, and I could feel my temperature kind of creeping up there, so I took it, and it was 102 degrees, so I knew something was a little off. 2 hours later, that's how fast it happened, just like that. 2 hours later, I wound up having the worst pain that I've ever experienced in my life. Now, I've broken my back before, and I've broken my leg before, and they missed the leg and they missed the back. So I was walking around with a compressed vertebrae with a compression fracture, and on my leg with a fractured tibial plateau, right where the tibia meets the cartilage in the knee. And they had me walking on it, and it was some of the worst pain I've ever felt. But this felt like I had broken every single bone in my body at the exact same time. It was terrible. Now my breathing got faster and faster as the pain got worse and worse. And eventually it got to the point where I started to lose feeling in my fingertips and my toes. And so I'm down here in the middle of Mexico, and my sister's nearby and her boyfriend, and I text her. I was keeping her up to date a little bit, hey, I don't feel so well. But then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, I need to go to the ER now. And so I wound up getting a ride to the ER, and they're suspecting two different things. They think that it's dengue fever, and COVID at the same time. So they do some tests, and in the meantime, I'm not allowed to contact anybody. I'm isolated because it's possibly COVID. They do a CAT scan on my lungs, and they find out that on a scale of 6, it's a 3 in terms of inflammation. And so there's some blockage going on where I can't really breathe right. But they said because my cardio is pretty good, because my cardio is pretty cardio of all things, really. Cardio saved me, but of course it did. I don't like cardio, but my cardio saved me because my body is really good at using the oxygen that it gets. So even though my lungs were functioning at a fraction of their normal capacity, my body was still able to use that oxygen to operate relatively normally outside of everything else that was going on. So the lungs weren't actually that big of a problem. Just because I've done so much cardio in the past, and I've done a lot of distance training and all that, my heart's really good at just using what it has. And it turns out when you don't have much to give it, having great cardio is a really big benefit, because you're using exactly what you have, which isn't a whole lot, but it's good enough. They took a couple blood tests. They did the CAT scan. With the CAT scan, they saw inflammation in the lungs, so they're like, yeah, this looks like COVID. And they were trying to save me a couple bucks because a COVID test here is $220 US. It's ridiculously high. But my sister wisely insisted that I get the test done. So I got the dengue fever test, I got the COVID test, and in the meantime, I'm dying in this hospital bed. My fever's going up to 105 degrees. And because it's possibly dengue, there's nothing they can do for it. Otherwise your organs start hemorrhaging. You just start bleeding internally apparently, and it is the worst possible way to go out. So the only thing they can give is acetaminophen, nothing harder than that. I was just sitting there waiting on these test results. None of my family or friends are allowed in because it's possibly COVID. I do have my sister texting me, and that meant a lot, but still just being there isolated alone and that amount of agonies, it was the worst possible thing that I've ever experienced. We get the test back, and the dengue one came back first. So they're like, yeah, you're positive for dengue and COVID. And it took a couple days to get the COVID test back. So that assumption the entire time I was in the emergency room was that I had both, because of how the lungs looked and the unbearable joint pain and just full body pain that comes along with dengue fever. So I'm in the emergency room for a couple days, and it really starts to play games with you mentally. From being isolated from everyone, having that much pain, I was really down in the dumps, and it really, really meant a lot to me when I had people reach out. Like on Instagram, I had a couple people DM me, you know, I had a couple family members reach out, and it made all the difference in the world of like trying to pull through that with a fever of like 105 degrees, and they're trying to keep it down, but it's not working. They're putting ice on me. And after 2 days in the emergency room, I was in the COVID unit. They're like, they got the test back, and it wound up being actually negative for COVID. Apparently dengue just causes a lot of organ inflammation, and if it gets really bad, your organs start like bleeding. But yeah, the COVID test came back negative. It was just the fever that we were dealing with at that point. And I wound up going back home because it was gonna be like $5,000 US to stay the night there. So I had to go back home with this massive fever, and I wound up just like icing from head to toe for the next couple days after that. And man, my diet and training, I didn't eat anything. I mean, it was a struggle to really get any like food down. I don't think I ate solid foods for the whole week. It was strictly like Gatorade and electrolytes. It was just like a constant battle trying to eat. And the amount of like energy it sapped from me, the amount of like lethargy was ridiculous. I could barely get out of my bed. It was a struggle to get out of my bed and walk into the other room to where the TV was and put on the TV. It was so bad. But yeah, towards the end of that, I wound up being able to get some food down. I wound up ordering Uber Eats, and I got a little bit of Outback. So that was pretty nice after not being able to eat like any solid foods for a while. So got a couple burgers, and I documented my physique like right before and then right after. And I was really surprised at the drastic difference in appearance that it was. And I'm assuming a lot of it was like the water weight. You know, I was trying to drink as much liquid as possible, but it was a struggle in the beginning. So towards the end, I kind of fell off from drinking all that water. So I guess I kind of flushed a lot of water out of the system. No solid foods. I kind of like, I guess, decarbed. And then when I ordered Outback, I wound up like recarbing up again. So I have a clip here that I think is really cool. And it just shows like, I just looked a lot more cut afterwards than before. But man, I went back to the gym and everything, and I was like weeks behind in my lift. So dengue fever's no joke, COVID's no joke. I hadn't even left my house for a week before that. I was basically like being a hermit, just doing my, just doing a couple classes online and just hanging out at the house and doing some YouTube video editing. But I don't know, it's, you get dengue fever from a mosquito, so it could have just like, I've been up on the rooftop just hanging out, and a mosquito could have bit me, and that's that. So moral of the story, if you're traveling in Mexico, use bug spray. Dengue fever was the worst pain I ever felt in my life. It's just so bad. And I mean, it's not really easily avoidable, but just use bug spray and just do yourself a favor. Anything that you can do to not get it is great. But more importantly, tell the people that you love them. None of us know how much time we have left on this earth, and I was thinking about that a lot when I was in the ER. I could step off a curb and like get hit by a bus, and then what would happen, Like, it's made me rethink a lot of things. So call your mom, tell her you love her. Your grandma, that walk that you've been putting off for too long because it sounds super boring, just go for it. Don't hesitate to just spend time with family members. Really tell them how you feel, tell them that you love them, And even if you don't love them, if you see someone going through something, just be good. Just sometimes all it takes is reaching out and saying, hey, what's up? Hope you're good. It doesn't have to be a whole lot, but this whole experience really made me realize just like the small things. The small things go a really long way to a lot of people, and you never really know what's going on with someone. So for me, it made a whole world of difference, and I'd bet my life that it makes a whole world of difference to a lot of other people out there too, that you and me might not have realized before. And I just want to say thank you again to all the people that reached out to me, all my family members, all my friends, people that I got to school with on Instagram, DM'd me, and it made the whole world of difference when you're fighting that battle with all that pain, and it plays tricks on your mind. So all that support really helped me pull through, and I definitely credit that to like just mentally battling and helping to get my fever down, on top of just, of course, like icing head to toe. But the mental aspect was just as important as the physical. So Much love to everybody. Thank you to all my followers and subscribers. Until next time.